Oh, with that deep, rich voice, that Southern drawl, veteran actor Sam Elliott is everybody's favorite cowboy.
He sure is. He's appeared in nearly 100 projects during the course of his 50-year career, including opposite Cher in the 1980s tearjerker Mask.
And then, just as the Virgil Wyatt Earp, in the Wild Wild West hit Tombstone.
Later, he famously narrated and made a surprise cameo in the cult classic The Big Lebowski.
But wait, and more recently, you can catch him on the small screen opposite Ashton Kutcher in the Netflix series The Ranch.
Yep. But now, okay, let's get to what we're here about.
The whole point.
He is lending that Southern charm and grit, to his role as Bobby, the older brother and manager to Bradley Cooper's Jackson, Maine. In one of the most anticipated films of the year, A Star is Born. We have a sneak peek where Sam's character is trying to be honest with his brother about losing his hearing. Take a look.
You gotta put them in, man.
I told you I can't wear those things, but I wear them. It's just in my head, and I need to be here with everybody else.
It's the only way to manage this thing, Jack. You're not gonna get back what you lost. It's the only way we can manage what you still got.
Oh, wow. I think we're managing pretty good.
What do you want me to do?
You know, the door's wide open if you want to go.
Don't start that. Show a little pride in what you're doing, buddy.
Oh, wow.
And it goes on from there.
Out of the back of my head, wasn't it?
Sam, I got to tell you something. We both got to see A Star is Born. I got to see it last night. It is phenomenal. And you playing Bradley Cooper's character's brother, I think the most tears happened in the theater when you two were having your moments. When this movie was coming to be again, did you think you wanted in on the project right away?
Well, I'd never met Bradley before, ever.
Wow.
You know, I mean, everybody thinks everybody knows everybody in that town, right? But I'd never met him, and I went into his home and spoke to him for a couple of hours. We talked about family, we talked about our moms, and we talked about this project.
He cooks for you.
He made a meal for me, a great meal. And at the same time I was there, he played this tape that he'd been working on with his voice coach for 4 months, and it was him doing a takeoff of my voice.
Oh, really?
And it was before I'd even met with him, and, you know, I mean, and certainly no deal was made, but
He's trying to lower the timbre of it, right?
He took his voice down an octave plus.
Yeah.
And so I knew right there that the odds were in my favor that I might get a chance to work on a film. And
He had you in mind, I thought, right?
Yeah.
no doubt in my mind
He
that I
wrote it
wanted
for
to
you, he
work
said.
Well,
Or it was planned for you, right?
when you think this is a movie that everybody has preconceived notions about and stepping back into it may be daunting, did it feel that way? Or
Not at all. I mean, Bradley had a take on it that was completely fresh, and
So fresh.
you know, he invested 3 years of his life in putting it all together, and you know, he not only directed and acted, but he co-wrote and wrote music for it, and, you know, and really got a performance out of all the actors that. You know, Bradley said, he told me that in the first meeting. He said to me, he said, if you trust me, you'll be glad that you do this thing.
Wow.
And he says that in the film. You saw the film.
Yeah.
There's a moment on stage where he's talking Stephanie into coming out on stage and joining him. And he says, just trust me, that's all you got to do. And he asked all of us to do that.
Trust, yeah.
And
First-time director, though, he was asking you, right?
Yeah. But odds are, if you can trust your director, trust your fellow actors, you're going to get at the truth.
Wow, I didn't even know he could sing. I mean, I didn't know.
There's nothing he can't do. He speaks French, he cooks.
And Lady Gaga just, those songs. It was amazing. Wow.
It's going to be the biggest movie of the year, I think.
No
for
question.
Sure.
Sam, thank you.
Sam.
A Star is Born hits theaters today.